Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Trust AI Partners, where we dive into the cutting edge of tech innovation. Join us as we explore how AI automation is transforming the way sales and operations scale smarter, not harder. If you're ready to discover the future of AI innovation and how your company can get ahead, stay tuned and connect with us for a free consultation. Today's guest is someone who truly lives at the intersection of infrastructure and innovation. Reno Ministrelli is the founder and CEO of Prodiconn, where he spent over 7 years leading the charge in customized telecom and EV charging solutions. What's especially exciting is how Reno and his team aren't just solving technical problems, they're crafting personalized solutions with speed, creativity, and strategic thinking. I came across Reno's work on LinkedIn and was immediately impressed by how he's bridging gaps in telecom and EV infrastructure with a keen eye on budget, speed, and collaboration. All things that echo the efficiency lessons we see in top construction companies today. Let's dive in. But first, Reno, welcome to the show. Can you kick things off by introducing yourself? Tell the audience a little bit more about Prodiconn, your work, and how it fits into telecom and EV charging today.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for having me, man. I started Prodiconn, as you said, 7 years ago, and it was really just out of the want of change in the industry. I've been in telecom since 2007, started from, the lowest man on the totem pole, $11 an hour I went from the lowest man on the totem pole to director of a large corporation in, I think, 7 or 8 years. And I'm not that smart of a guy. I find myself very driven and just a different way of thinking, So when I started the business, it was really to create opportunity and to evolve the way that we are doing things. When I first started, we were literally using pen and paper and then scanning files when we have Adobe and, Blue Point, all these other functions that we can use. And it was an old school mentality, and it needed to be evolved. But no one was willing in the corporations that I worked in to accept that evolution and to change the way of thinking. They're just stuck in the old ways. So after several years of frustration, it was either, start something on my own or just succumb to my environment. And I refused to do that. So I started Prodiconn, didn't really know what the hell I was doing, didn't know which direction it was going to go, and it's evolved, and it's still evolving. Our newest evolution, as you mentioned, is electric vehicle charging stations. The correlation between how we install telecom infrastructure and how we install electric vehicle charging stations, they're very parallel, and I don't think that very many companies thought that way, but in order to diversify and give ourselves a higher revenue base and a higher customer or a greater customer base, I started poking around, studied it for about 2 years, went to conferences, made phone calls, and now we're a direct Tesla vendor. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm a nobody. We're less than 30 people. So to get our foot in the door in that regard is, I'll pat myself on the back for that one.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Congratulations on that. So, Reno, let's talk a little bit about construction tech. In terms of technology, AI automation, speed, clarity are going to be crucial. How do you think technology could enhance prospect targeting and accelerate your sales pipeline?
It's a good question. And it was something I was really going to ask you, being the expert here. I know that there's opportunity, but again, there's still this old school mentality in the industry that I don't know that the telecommunication space has evolved to that yet. I think that there's more opportunity in the EV space, in connecting the dots, but I don't really have a good answer for that question. A lot of what we do is in blue collar life is boots on the ground and actual field measurements. And I know that there's a lot of automation coming into those field services where, you can, and we use drones, for example, right? Flying drones up using software to capture measurements instead of walking around with a wheel and physical tape measures. We try to gather the data that way. So I see the evolution happening as far as providing services, but from a customer base, a lot of, especially in telecom, right? We have T-Mobile, we have AT&T, we have Verizon. That's it. You could go to, I guess, Mint, Boost, and things like that, but they're all parts of larger conglomerates. They're all under the umbrella. So
Yeah, I could see how it could be. It sounds like what you're saying is it's difficult to focus in on who you're really targeting.
yeah,
Is that it?
it's not really it's not as hard to focus in on who you're targeting, but the players are who they are, right? There's not going to be a new AT&T that's going to pop up. The closest thing that I would say would be Starlink, but the challenge is Starlink is owned by Elon and he does his own thing. So,
Hmm.
unless I'm gonna invest in rockets, then I don't think I'm gonna have a whole lot of value to add for that protocol.
So your prospects are very limited to those huge corporations.
Unfortunately, yeah, and that's why we branched out and then evolved into the EV space because there's a lot more opportunity there.
Got it. And peeling back a little bit on the EV charging stations, what's the ideal customer profile look like on that side of the business?
Strictly commercial. I don't have interest to get into residential because there's a lot of nuances when it comes to working in people's homes or apartment complexes, and a lot of, I guess to put it in perspective, putting concrete in a parking lot is very different than having to fix a handle on somebody's cabinet, or a ding in a garage door sort of thing. So, um, commercial base, larger projects, the better. And what we're looking at targeting now are um, like courier companies or rental car companies, like a Hertz or a Enterprise or, big conglomerates like that who are going to have fleets, I guess would be the word that I would use, any sort of like fleet service.
Hmm.
Um, and there's this Waymo, like the self-driving cars thing. I've never been in one. And I also, I guess I'll be honest, I don't drive an electric vehicle, but putting in the infrastructure pays the bills. And I see a big upside in my business by performing that service.
I'm curious, have you looked into the management companies that are managing the real estate for shopping centers and things of that nature?
I have not looked into them because there a lot of the real estate companies aren't doing the infrastructure on their own. There was this government subsidy that I think has just recently been canceled. Um, with our new chief of whatever, president, whatever you want to call him. Um, and there's companies that have gone around and have done the research, right? They've pinpointed the locations. They think that they've identified what would be of value based on other locations, and they kind of have that deep sales force and that infrastructure. So what we do specifically, trying to stay local in Texas, is work with the people that have those contracts, and then that project comes to us when
Mhm.
it's getting ready to go into development or pre-permitting.
Got it. Makes sense. So it
So
sounds like,
if I were to have like a sales team of, 5 or 10 people that were real estate experts, that'd be a different situation. But at the phase where my company's at right now, and knowing that there's headhunters out there making those phone calls, there's not really a need at the moment for me to do that. Right now, my value is moving dirt and putting wire in the ground.
mhm, got it. Interesting. So it sounds like there could be a whole untapped market out there if you're just able to connect with the right people with the right relationships that maybe have access to these large government or state contracts or subsidies or things of that nature.
There could be, yeah. I mean, I see a future in that, and I'm always one to really work myself from the bottom floor up, right? So the sooner that I can get in at ground floor and learn the infrastructure from the ground up, to me, selling is the easy part, executing is the hard part.
Hmm.
So if we can execute, then I can go sell to anybody. But
Hmm.
if I can't execute, then it's worthless, in my opinion.
Makes sense. No, I get it. So, when you think about your biggest challenge today, what, aside from what we just talked about, what's the biggest challenge in front of you over the next 12 months?
Honestly, I would say working capital is the biggest challenge. Um, the the pipeline for constructible projects is endless as far as I can tell. And the challenge is that a lot of these builds are capital heavy up front, with the price of consumables going up and copper, especially with the tariffs. Copper just went up. I don't know what the tariff was. I think it was like 13% or 18% just last week. Then starting multiple projects and keeping them going is very capital intensive because there's a 4 to 6 week build time. So paying today, say you have 30-day net terms, 4 to 6 week build time. I'm collecting on sites, on projects I'm starting now in September or October, right? So you need 90 days of cash, and it's a lot of wire. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that go into this.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Uh, how about in terms, Reno, when you think about uh, content strategy or content creation, what role does that play in your growth strategy? Is that something that you get involved with from a marketing standpoint or
Yeah,
recruiting standpoint?
yes. And there's people on my team that every time I post a video and I put it on LinkedIn or I put it on Facebook or Instagram, we always get massive feedback. When we do flyers or we do we'll have graphic design team put together a flyer for hiring, for example, right? Recruiting. It's not as well received as when I do a video. Now, I'm not the most comfortable filming myself and making videos. I'm trying to step into that space. But there's definitely an upside, and we haven't done much paying for ad boost or anything like that, but the video content seems to be really capturing the audience's attention, especially from a recruiting perspective. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know so much on from a sales perspective, but we're getting a lot of outreach from subcontractors and people who are seeking employment.
Okay. All right. Good. And how about in terms of market shifts? Any emerging trends that you see that are going to have a major impact on your business going forward or your ability to grow?
Recruiting, honestly, it's blue collar work is in the blue collar worker. I feel like it's sort of a dying breed of sorts. There's not a lot of us out there, and it's not as attractive as, I don't know, being an influencer or being, sitting in an office wearing a suit. And a lot of people don't realize that working a shovel can pay more, sometimes double what your average sales job will. I was just reading an article maybe a month ago where Google is investing in their 100,000 master electricians short for the
Mm-hmm.
future AI. 100,000. I mean, master electrician and master plumber, those were like, I guess when I was going to college, those were trades that were kind of like, I guess it was kind of like sold to me personally as like looked down upon, like being a blue collar worker. It wasn't, you weren't at the upper echelon, but 100,000 master electricians, you're going to have 100,000 people making close to $200,000 a year. I mean, if someone would have framed it up to me when I went to college that your first sales job, you're going to get $35,000 a year salary plus, 1% commissions, or you're going to be getting, you know, 75 to 120 bucks an hour, it really wouldn't have been a hard sell, but that's not the way that things are framed up and pitched.
Yeah, and you see that as, I mean, overall, it's almost like a structural problem with the demographics of that age group and just not enough people going into the trades.
Yeah. And I'd hate to say it, but I think it's I mean, technology certainly has its place in value and use, but there's like an iPad generation, and thankfully, I'm 44 years old, so the internet didn't exist when I was a kid. So when I was outside playing, we were playing in dirt. Rocks and sticks were toys. Nowadays, you have, endless amounts of information and videos and streaming and whatever at your fingertips. And I think that that's partially taking away for the interim. I think that there's going to be value in that in the future because a lot of the heavy equipment and whatnot we operate will be automated. And I think those tools will be valuable, but we're in this gap right now, as far as I see, where the technology is not there yet, and it's going to take a while to get there. Partially because some of the best equipment that we run, operate, and rent, is from the '80s. That equipment doesn't die. It's steel and it's old diesel engines. There's a reason that stuff doesn't go away. So how long before those things die and they wind up in a scrapyard before you have something like an excavator you can run from an iPad?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they're out there. I know they are. I watched the videos on Facebook and Instagram, but those things are $500,000 or more.
Yeah.
And then finding someone to operate it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely an issue. The company I was recently involved with, construction, home improvement, these were all employees. They weren't subcontracted, and they were provided a company truck, full benefits, phone, all the basic stuff you would expect from W-2 with a 6-figure income. And still, we, over the past several years, have trended becoming more and more challenging to find these people to fill these jobs. And it's incredible.
We've had a lot of success, honestly, going the TN visa route. Just this last year, I got us established with the USCID, I think, and we're bringing in immigrant workers from Mexico and sponsoring their visas for 3 years. Because, like you said, I would interview people and they have a year experience, and they're saying, they're coming in wanting $30 an hour with no experience. Mm-hmm. And when I had no experience, I was at $11 an hour, and I wasn't asking for anything. I was grateful for the opportunity. It's just a different mindset.
The entity that you mentioned there, is that where immigrants are coming in through the program? Is that involved with a trade school, a trade type program?
A lot of it is what I'm getting is word of mouth. We have when we put posts on Facebook, for example, there's certain groups and we can target, and there's Facebook groups that one of my employees found that's specifically for TN visa seekers that want to come to the United States for a better opportunity for themselves and their family. And we seek them out there. And a lot of times they're educated and have degrees from universities in Mexico or Central or South American countries. And they're coming here to do blue collar work just for opportunity. America's a land of opportunity.
Have you looked into trying to see if there's any programs set up, be it with university degrees, local colleges, community colleges, trade schools, to see if you can get involved with as a company for a transition from those programs into the workforce?
So we have. I've spoke to a few of them, and I don't remember the names off the top of my head, and not that it's important, but what I've found is they are quick to certify, but there's no real training. I could be certified in, I don't know, I can get a certification in 4 hours for sewing, right? But you give me a shirt and a sewing machine, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But just because I took a class and I have the certification, it doesn't mean that I'm qualified. So the challenge is certified versus qualified, where I think in certain trades, it's, you need 3 years on the ground, and not only to be convinced yourself that this is something that you want to do, but to learn from people who are actually doing it and then commit for a lifetime of making this your livelihood.
So I guess that puts you in a situation where you have to decide, do you want to create this entry level type program where these individuals can be paid a rate that is affordable for the skills that they have at that time, and then hopefully be able to learn and grow out of it into a more independent role after a couple of years. Is that a part
Yeah.
of? Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and we see a lot of that on the telecommunications side. We build cell phone wireless infrastructure on cell phone towers, on top of the EV side, and a lot of younger guys, think it's sexy, cool. Pick your adjective, I guess, of what you'd want to put in there, but to be on top of a tower and take a picture. But climbing a tower is the walk to your office, and you have to be there all day.
Hmm.
And then there's a certain level of trust and risk involved in taking someone who's never done it before, someone's child, brother, whatever, right, husband, and having their life in jeopardy. It's a very high risk environment that we work in, and I think that's the part that's forgotten, is getting up there and seeing the views is great, but once you get to your office, you got 8 hours of work to do, then you got to climb down.
At one point in my life, I would have thought that sounds like the coolest job I could imagine. Now with a couple little ones, like,
Yeah.
now I get
I
it.
mean, I've been doing it for years and it's great. There's a certain level of freedom, but it's really hard work, man. The stuff that we install is heavy, and the risk is real, and the trust and the brotherhood that you have with the people, because you're working in unison with everyone for not only everyone's safety, but to execute the job effectively, whether it be with a crane or a rope. One slip up or one knot gets undone, and it can be detrimental to, injury, life, or a very expensive mistake. If no person's involved, then it might be a vehicle or a home or something that gets damaged. There's severe risk.
Yeah, it makes sense. Let's talk about KPIs for a minute. How do you measure the success of your growth initiatives? And what KPIs are the most critical when you're looking at that and projecting or forecasting the future?
The most important KPI for me is, I guess, I try to quantify employee happiness. Am I building an organization that is worthy of the employees that come here to do this work for me and with me? You know, because they're risking their lives, and a lot of times they're away from home for, days on end, for sure, sometimes weeks on end. Are they getting the value out of it? Is the income that they're getting worthy of their time away? And that's really one of the biggest challenges. And then I look at, we use QuickBooks as many people do, but I don't look at it so much as project based as I do annually or quarterly. I'll look at reports from how we're doing from the previous year. And, and one thing that a lot of business owners won't say, I guess I don't hear it as often as I'd like, is, your revenue might double, but your costs might have tripled to get there. So
Hmm.
your margin is now lower, and that's one thing that I've had to learn is, the more money you make, the more expenses you're going to have, and the higher all your expenses are going to be. And then you have to start looking at volume, where's the biggest bang for your buck? And then which of those projects can you target, and which of those have longevity?
And so when you mention employee happiness, I mean, on the one hand, I really respect that where you're coming from with that, in terms of having a business, having a company that people can value and appreciate, and they want to be there, they want to stick around, right? So it also has a major effect in your retention of these employees.
Sure.
And then on the other side of it, I think about the dollars and cents and the time involved from a business standpoint, and I wonder how granular you're getting in terms of, you get a contract, you get a project, it's going to take X amount, it's going to cost Y amount of dollars. You have the cash flow issues that you brought up earlier, and how you're going to deal with those, and operating capital. And so maybe this is a two-part question. One part of the question is, how often or how are you able to execute on the time frame that you project? And are those KPIs, are they important when you're executing on that timeline and trying to stay in budget?
Yeah, I mean, all good questions, Jim. It's a moving target, and we do our best to forecast and execute on that forecast. Being boots on the ground, weather always comes into play, heat comes into play. We have to deal with the elements, and then supply chain, availability of the people that we rely on. A lot of it is, for example, working with utility companies. Say that we need a 6,000 amp service delivered to a location for electric vehicle charging stations. Well, we complete our work up until that point, and then we're at a stopping point. It could take them 30 days, 45 days, 60 days to get out there, right? So we're just stopped. And then we have to find something else for these people to do, and then go back as if we didn't skip a beat because our client expects it. Well, now we're here, we got to get across the finish line. Well, it's a total mindset shift for us because we've been doing something else, and now we got to come back and reacclimate, and get back to the infrastructure. On a granular level, the closer I look, the more frustrating it gets, and I have to look at it, more big picture. And that's why I say I look at it really quarterly, biannually, and then as a basis off of last year holistically from a company standpoint on what we're going to show and what our costs are from last year to this year, as far as how the company's doing. And when it comes to the employees, I mean, I've been a part of large corporations, and they have amazing HR departments, and they send out these employee surveys. And honestly, man, I've always just thought they were so useless. I feel like you just get BS answers that people want to hear. People are saying what they want to hear, or they're giving you answers so they don't lose their job, and you're not getting brutal honesty. And if you were to get brutal honesty, I don't think it'd be something that a lot of people would want to hear, because some things in corporations, they're just not going to change. So what we do is we have actual phone calls, conversations, and every chance I get and every time I think about it, I just ask the guys, how are you doing? How is everything? Are you getting enough time at home? Is there anything we could be doing better? And just ask the actual individuals face to face the questions that we want and get their feedback and their answers.
Yeah, and it probably means a lot coming from the owner, coming from yourself, I would imagine.
I would hope so. But sometimes I feel, being in my shoes, I also get BS answers, because no one wants to say anything to make me mad. But what I'm looking for is honesty. And when I do get it, and they're not always easy conversations to have, but when I get it, I always try to hold myself with gratitude and thank them for being honest, because I always say, if I don't know that there's a problem, then I can't fix it. There's an analogy that may or may not be appropriate for your podcast, but I tell the guys, and it's mostly guys that work with me, but I'm not your girlfriend. Don't make me guess why you're mad. You have to tell me what the problem is so I can fix it. I'm not your wife, where if I ask you if you're okay and I know you're not and you say yes, that's not a real answer. Like, what is the problem? Whether it be personal or something that I can actually help with. But if you're not honest, I can't fix it. If I don't know what's broken, I can't fix it.
Yeah, it's as you mentioned, I know every time my wife says, I say, "Are you okay?" and she goes, "I'm fine." We know what that really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a problem I can't fix. But if I don't know, the tires are bald in the truck, or you've been away from home too long, those are things that we can talk about. And maybe getting into those conversations will help fix some of those downstream problems. But the reality of the situation is it's work, and we wake up every day and go to work. We don't wake up every day and go have fun. Otherwise, they would call it something else. So there's certain things that are not going to be enjoyable, and that's part of the job that everyone's signed up to do. But the only thing that we can do and can control is choose who we do this with.
Yeah, well said. That place of honesty is so important, and sometimes so difficult to lose those valuable conversations and valuable feedback. The bigger the company gets, right? And
Yeah.
that was going to lead me to my next question is, one, could you, if you're comfortable sharing, how many employees do you have at this point?
I should know this, but I think we have like 27 or 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're covering national or certain
No,
states?
we're in Texas. We stay in Texas, and some of our wireless carriers, like Texas is kind of split up into three separate markets. So Austin, San Antonio is a market that goes all the way over to west to Laredo. Dallas covers southern Oklahoma and sometimes parts of eastern New Mexico. And then our Houston market will cover sometimes into like Shreveport, Louisiana. So when I say Texas, there are those surrounding states that it kind of branches over in where there it's kind of like a gap in between, so there's a little bit of overlap.
And do you just have one location where to handle logistics and operations, or are you spread out throughout the state?
So we have our headquarters in New Braunfels, Texas here. That's where our main office is.
Uh,
And then we have a satellite location in Houston, and we're working on a satellite location in Dallas right now.
Got it. Okay. And do you have plans for the future to expand further in the state or multi-state? What does that look like?
Ideally for me, I would like to stay in Texas. The economy here is booming, and I don't feel the need to go out of state right now. I get opportunities presented to me to go. Selfishly, I have three children under two. I have a 19-year-old daughter and then twin boys that we just had on May 1st. So in order for that to be successful, I feel that I would need to be present and
Mm-hmm.
and I would need to be there. And right now I'm not at a point in my life where I can do that. In the future, I see it as an opportunity, talking maybe 10 years down the road,
Mm-hmm.
at which point I think we'll be at a place where I could recruit and find someone who is local to that area. And then we could set up an organization around that individual who has the contacts and who knows the ins and outs of the jurisdictions and whatnot. But currently, I mean, as close to local as we can stay is preferred. And knowing the local jurisdictions and all of their regulations, there's value in that. We see companies come in from out of state all the time, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard it. In California, we do it like this. In Missouri, we do it like this. And you're not there, man. We're here.
Yeah.
This is how we do it. You either have to get with the program or you're going to get run out of town. And unfortunately, I'd say realistically, 90% of them don't stick around. They think they can do it. And then, in last July, for example, we had almost 30 some days of over 100 degrees. And, you bring some people in from Minnesota or Illinois, and I mean, it's hot, dude. It's hot. It's brutal. And, it's not everyone wants to do it. And the guys here, what we do a lot of times is, and I encourage it, is start at 3 a.m, be done by noon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the case and we can't always do that. But, by the time 2 p.m., 3 p.m. rolls around, and if you're working steel, that's been baking in the sun all day. I dare you to pick it up without gloves. I've done it. It's not a pleasurable experience.
Welcome to Texas, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's hot. And it's, when you do pick that up, you got to keep in mind here, we got critters. There's rattlesnakes, there's scorpions, when you move whatever was the shaded area, you better have boots on, you better have gloves on, you better have sleeves on. And you say all of that when it's 100 degrees wearing all that stuff, dude, it's not dry. It's not a comfortable environment.
Gets real quick.
Yeah. Every day before the guys leave a job site, I see it all the time. And I do the same thing. You take an extra pair of clothes, take your jeans off, take your socks off, take your shirt off, put on a clean t-shirt, shorts, and sandals, and get in your truck and drive home, because that stuff's nasty at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's good stuff, Reno. Hey, one topic I wanted to touch on, I think we might have glazed over it earlier, is in in terms of CRM, operations, logistics, how is that affecting your current business in terms of keeping things efficient, keeping the information at your fingertips, knowing when you wake up in the morning at the crack of dawn and you figure out what fires do you got to put out? What's the highest priority? What does that look like for you currently?
I wish that I had a better answer, and I've been looking into AI solutions, but it is 90% manual. So when we work, we deal with several different construction managers and several different project managers. And throughout our client base, everyone seems to have their own CRM that they operate in. And those are all licensed and secure. So none of them could integrate into something that I could create. Microsoft Excel and building macros to where we can drop data and then run VLOOKUPs and all sorts of formulas to pull the data in with formulas that will highlight dates and occurrences and milestones that we need to capture. And a lot of it is just a formatting where it turns a date red, and we know we have to address those things. But I'm looking into and debating whether I have the bandwidth to try to create something that is more automated, that is fed from a human. But right now, I mean, it's more manual than I wish it was. But all of this proprietary information from our clients that is, in my opinion, not proprietary or of value to anyone other than me. They won't allow systems to speak, and we don't even get limited access as a supplier from what the internal employees do, where we have to request data from a certain person, and we can't ask for them to give it to us 10 times a day. So a lot of times we're working 2 or 3 days behind on bad data. But again, it comes down to, in those situations, knowing that that's the environment that we're in and knowing that it sucks and there's nothing we could do about it. So we kind of have to turn a blind eye and just focus on what we can control. And what we can control is knowing what we can do in that day, and also the people that we surround ourselves with and who we're accepting these challenges with to make them successful.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, the most accurate data in real time is going to lead to the best decision in that moment. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Reno, this was an incredible conversation. I think your approach is one to be admired, and I know our listeners in construction tech and beyond took away some valuable insights and what it really takes to drive with purpose. Reno, thank you again for joining us. Any final thoughts, or just let the audience know where's the best place to connect with you for more information?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach us on our social medias. The company is Prodiconn Solutions. I think our Instagram is at Prodiconn. You can find us on Facebook. You can reach out directly to me on LinkedIn or our company website. And, one of the new offerings that I'm currently creating, if I may, is a business coaching platform that I'm creating. So I'm working with a group right now and creating this platform for people just like myself. When I sat in front of my computer in my 2-bedroom apartment 2 years ago, thinking there's got to be a better way to do this, and then working out how I was going to create my business and not knowing how it was going to evolve. So as a gift and a return back, and in hopes to build the blue collar working environment, I'm going to start helping others with the same idea that I had, who don't know where to turn or who to ask, or have a non-biased party to bounce ideas off of. And that's a new business that I'll be starting before the end of this year. And there'll be some content out about that and some courses that people can sign up for a nominal fee, with personal feedback from me, so people don't have to make the same mistakes that I've made.
And that's totally separate from Prodiconn.
Yeah, it's totally separate from Prodiconn, but it wouldn't be a reality had Prodiconn not existed.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Well, listen, to everyone listening out there, we'll see you on the next episode of Trust AI Partners. Reno, thanks again.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.